you give power to other people or other things in your life when you think that they have any sort of influence or control over what's happening with you.
Yeah.
Whether that's, deeper problems in your life or something we're talking about, a fear of public speaking. Hey, I'm in control of this. I'm going to challenge my beliefs about public speaking and I'm going to confront myself for thinking that way instead of thinking, oh, like I said, I just don't have confidence or I'm an introvert or whatever the case may be.
Welcome to Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, where we hear real stories from real people and we tackle all sorts of fun topics in the areas of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, mindset, the arts, and, well, life itself. It's amazing what you will pick up. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back, everyone. Darren Saul here, your host of Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast. Hope everybody's doing really, really well. I've got a fantastic guest with me all the way from the States. Zach Vaught is with me in the house. How you doing, Zach?
Going on, man? How you doing?
Very, very well. And Zach has been very, very graceful. He's been waiting till 2 a.m. to do this interview. So I feel very, very embarrassed, but he looks very fresh and
Ready to go.
Looking forward to a great interview. So it's episode 238. And the topic for today is finding strength in the spotlight with Zach Vaught. So before I kick off, I'll just let everybody know that I'm doing lots of work to put together loads of great podcast resources, loads of free stuff, loads of paid stuff for guests and hosts. And you'll always find a link in the bottom of the show notes to that landing page where you can go and grab all those resources for you. But let's get on to the show. I'm going to give Zach a little bit of a bio or an intro before we jump into the conversation. So Zach is a 33-year-old professional launching his first coaching business as a public speaking coach. His goal is to help working professionals who struggle with fear and anxiety of public speaking understand their fears, develop techniques and action plans to overcome them, and ultimately love public speaking. He was born and raised in Syracuse, New York, attended Syracuse University, and has just recently moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, because he wasn't happy where he was in life. Fresh out of a long-term relationship, he realized he was too comfortable in his hometown and that he couldn't become who he wanted to become if he stayed there. So he moved far away and forced himself out of his comfort zone, which in turn led to him starting his own business. Zach has been an IT professional since age of 25. And from very young, one of the things that he always felt separated him from the pack was his ability to speak. From large presentations to one-on-one, he always felt comfortable. Zach has professional classroom teaching experience, tour guide experience, and even experience officiating weddings. And so he finally decided he wanted to help all those out there who struggle with presentations and public speaking to overcome their fear and love it like he does. So here he is launching his first coaching business, and he couldn't be more excited. So welcome, Zach.
How's it going?
Very,
Super
very well.
excited to be here.
Great to have you, man.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'd love to hear more about your epitome. When did you realize that you always were a natural public speaker?
I'm going to half jokingly say fifth grade. When I was like 10 or 11 years old, right? But no, so when I was in fifth grade, it was like the first time I ever had to give a speech. Here in the States, I think a common thing that every elementary school kid has to do is get up and give a presentation about whatever one of the 50 states that you get assigned. So that's like the first presentation I ever had to give. And I'm a fifth grade kid and I am terrified, right? Like I have to get up in front of my friends and talk in front of them. What if they make fun of me or what if I don't do well, right? And I was lucky enough to have parents, and especially my father, who really pushed me into public speaking. And so in that specific, when I was a kid, he would come at it from the angle of, you should volunteer to go first and just get it out of the way, just like the ripping the Band-Aid off. But I think what he was teaching me, a much more profound lesson that I didn't realize till much later in life, was if you force yourself to run towards uncomfortable action and take uncomfortable action, that's how you grow.
Yeah.
And I say he encouraged me to go first for that presentation. He really made me. I don't think I had much of a choice, but so I did, and I did well. And shockingly, I think right from then enjoyed being up in front of people and speaking. And so I think that was the first taste of kind of loving that I got,
Yeah.
and just built on that the rest of my life. Obviously in school, you presentations are pretty common, so you're doing them a lot, but I don't think it was really until grad school when I was getting really into my IT studies that I realized what a tool it could be. I remember like the first weekend of grad school or whatever, it was this big welcome weekend class that you had to do, and there was like competitions where you had to come up with different programs or this or that, but then you had to present on them. And I just remember everyone being so terrified to get up and speak, and me just being like, I'll get up and talk. I'll
All good.
speak the whole time if you want me to. And that carried on into my professional career. And throughout all those years, it's just been this thing I've noticed, this pervasive fear around public speaking. And so finally, I was just like, you know what? I want to help people with this. It's a common thing. It's an alarming stat. It's like 75%, around 75% of the world's population identifies as having some sort of fear of public speaking. 3 out of every 4 people in the world. There's no shortage of people out there that struggle with this, and I'd like to be able to help them with it.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so true. I think everything is education. So the more you take yourself out of your comfort zone, you practice, you do the reps, you start to get more comfortable, you start to enjoy it, you start to get more creative, but you can't shy away from it. You just got to do it.
100%. And I think as people, we don't know what we don't know, right? I think I know this will be a common thing you'll hear me bring up throughout the show, but I think so much of why people fear public speaking is because they don't really understand it.
Yeah.
And maybe not necessarily understand public speaking, but don't understand the way they think about their audience or the type of presentation that they're giving or the things that they worry about. I think what I want to do is really help people reframe the way they think about those things. And I think doing that alone will really help people. And then that's when you want to get into different techniques, different practices. What exercises can you do? Like you said, how can you get more reps to make
Exactly.
yourself more comfortable?
Yeah. And probably I'm just guessing now because you're the expert. I'm sure you're going to get into this later on, but I'm guessing that starting to desensitize yourself slowly and building the audience slowly as you go. You don't want to go from not speaking at all to speaking in front of 1,000 people. Just start with 5 and then 10 and then 50 and then 100 and slowly building your capability.
100%. And that's a big part of, I know we're going to talk about this there, but a big part of how I work is that's really how the program would go is
Nice.
focus on your mindset. And then the first step is always about quick wins. It's not trying to think about like swimming lessons when you're a kid, right? Like they don't just throw you into the deep end and have you
That's right.
start swimming laps. Like you're in the shallow end and you're building, and you hit the nail right on the head. Speaking's no different.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we jump in, I just want to get a sense of what you've been up to in your career because it sounds like you've been in IT, you've done some tour guiding, you've done a bit of everything, officiated weddings. So is this like a bit of like you do lots of different things because you enjoy it?
Yeah, the tour guiding thing, that was when I was in college. I was a campus tour guide at
Right.
Syracuse University.
Nice.
But that was certainly a great opportunity to get up and speak in front of people. And some of the best relationships I've formed throughout my life have been through opportunities that were related to public speaking in one way
Wow.
or another.
Very cool.
That being no different. I've been, as far as my professional career, it's really been IT the whole time. I started as my classroom teaching experience is in IT. It was teaching healthcare professionals how to use software systems. So doctors, nurses, things, how they can use the electronic medical record and all of that stuff. And
Wow.
then stayed in that field. I have been more on the technical side of things since starting doing that, but it obviously still requires interacting with people and getting up and speaking. And the weddings thing is just funny. One of my best friends, I have myself and 4 other best friends. We all grew up together. We've known each other since we were 5 years old. And one of my best friends, he just, I don't know what sparked it in him from day one was always, you're going to be the minister at my wedding. And I don't know if he knew I was good at speaking or whatever. I got ordained online to do
Wow.
his wedding. And then I actually had another close family friend. She was getting married. and got to know her fiance well through her. And we go on vacation with this family every year. And one year on vacation, it was the summer before they were going to get married. And we got like to the house, right? And they're like, Zach, before we unpack, we have a question for you. I said, okay. And they like gave me like a t-shirt that said you minister on it or something.
Oh my
You'd
God.
be the minister in our wedding. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to do that. I did that. And so that's been something I've enjoyed. I don't do that just
Yeah.
as like a service or anything. I just have done it for friends and family. And I think that's what I've really enjoyed about it, is getting to share that moment with people that I really care about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. And then just really been trying to start getting things going here and helping people with speaking.
Nice. And what brought the final decision to go out on your own and start this business?
I think it was a couple of things. I think obviously the move that you mentioned in the introduction, like just being in a new place and getting into new things, like that was certainly it. I attend virtual events or different things whenever I see something that catches my eye, whether it's a Facebook ad or
Yeah.
what have you. And ended up attending a Tony Robbins
Oh,
virtual event, actually. And it was all about starting online businesses, how like so many people have value that they can share with the world that could solve problems for people that are going through, whether it's struggles that they went through themselves or skills that they have. And they were talking about thinking about some of the things. And I was like, why don't I do this? And it's not something that I've never thought of before, but I think just that was like the timing of it, me being in a new place, and just
yeah.
decided, yeah, this is the time to do this and really get this going. So.
That's awesome, man. They're really great. And so let's dive in a bit more. And I want to really uncover the psychology of the fear around public speaking. Why are 3 out of 4 people so scared, so petrified of public speaking? Is it because fear of judgment? Is it fear we don't have confidence? What is it?
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head to start, right? The biggest thing that I've seen, and I think your research will show, is fear of judgment. That's got to be the top reason that people struggle with public speaking, whether it's people being self-conscious and thinking like, oh, how do I look when I'm up there? How do I sound? What if I make a mistake? Are people going to make fun of me? Will they not like the way that I speak? All of those little things that are going into it. And I think a bigger thing is something that we've touched on already, is for a lot of people, public speaking is a version of leaving their comfort zone. It's uncomfortable to them. And just as human beings, right, we're not naturally wired to wander outside of our comfort zone. So when people get presented with an opportunity or a situation like that where they're like, man, I have to get up and speak in front of people, I don't want to do that. So they avoid it or come up with whatever the case may be, to instead of jumping into it and being like, you know what, let's get comfortable with this. It's more along the lines of, how can I not have to do this? I think those are really the two big things. But in terms of an actual fear of judgment, I think you hit it right on the head. That's the biggest one by
It,
a country mile.
it's amazing how that plays into so many different things. Nearly everything we do, that there's an undercurrent of the fear of judgment. It's fascinating to me.
It really is. And it's one of the things too, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, but it really is one of those fears too that I think it's just the way that people think about it. Like they see a situation where they could be judged or made fun of, or they could make a mistake or what have you. And instead of thinking deeper into that about, okay, why do I think about it that way? Or instead of challenging their self limiting beliefs, they just see that fear. Okay, don't go that way. Let's
Yeah.
go this way.
It's just
And
avoid it. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Now, I understand that there are lots of different styles of public speaking. So I wonder if you could break that down for us a little, just to give people a bit more of an understanding of what public speaking actually is or what the definition might be.
Yeah, this is a fascinating topic and question, really. There's so many different types, right? You can break it down in so many different ways, whether it's size of your audience, topic that you're presenting on. I personally want to break it down into kind of two different types that I have broken it down to over my career. And the reason for that is there's these two specific types. There's the approach to them is different, right? And the thought process. So type A, right, is you're the expert. You're
Nice.
presenting to a group of people that may have some knowledge about what you're talking about, but they're there to get information from you. They're there to learn from you. You're the power holder, if you
Yeah.
will.
You
And
have
type
the higher
B,
status.
exactly. And type B is you're speaking to a panel or a group of people that they either know as much as you do, or in some cases could know more.
Mhm.
And that's two different things, right? And so let's talk about type A. Type A, right? I think we talk about fear of judgment and what if I make a mistake? What if I leave something out? All of those things. And if you're the highest status, as you put it, or the expert, or whatever you want to call it, you are completely in control of the material. You know what you're supposed to be saying. Your audience doesn't know all of that.
Yeah.
And so if you make a mistake or if you leave something out, they probably won't
Yeah.
know
They wouldn't even know.
unless you let them know.
Yeah.
And that's a common thing that I have seen over my career is someone leaves something out in a presentation that they wanted to talk about in that type of presentation. And they backtrack and they end up flustering themselves when in
Yeah.
reality, no one besides them noticed, right? And I would say too, if that happens and someone in your audience really wanted to know about that topic that you left out, they'll ask you about it. You can cover that in Q&A when you get asked about it, inevitably. And if no one asks about it, then they probably weren't, there for that specific piece of information. So I think that's a quick mindset reframe for those types of presentations that people can use. And then the other one, which is much more difficult to me, is when you're speaking to people that do know everything you're saying. Because then when you do leave something out or you maybe misstate something a little bit, they're probably going to know, right? And just like a real world example I'll give you from my career is when I was first starting my classroom teaching job in IT, right? The first part of that is you have to learn the lesson plans and the curriculum and just practice teaching the classes. And then before you can teach a live class, you have to teach to the rest of your team so that they can see that you're mentioning all the right stuff and following the lesson plans and how do you handle questions and all of those things. And we called them teachbacks. And those teachbacks were probably the most nervous I've personally ever been speaking to a room. And it was 5 people that I worked with. But it
Wow.
was because I knew that they knew every little thing I was supposed to be saying. And so you're going to hear me talk about this theme throughout everything. But in cases like that, and this is the biggest key to any public speaking that you're doing, is just preparation, preparation, preparation,
Yep.
practice, 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 to the point that you don't want to practice anymore, and then you still should. And like I said, there's obviously so many ways to break down speaking, but I have always broken it down those two ways. If I'm the expert, then I know I'm in total control and I'm not going to let anything get to me because I can dictate how things go. And if maybe I do slip up or forget something, then as long as you don't let the audience know, they won't know. And then the other side of it is, okay, I just know in this case, prepare like you've never prepared before. And, things will take care of themselves.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for preparation. I much prefer to over prepare, and even if I don't need all that preparation, when I come in, I will be so much more relaxed and I'll be so much more confident because I've done the work beforehand. And then whatever presents itself is really easy. But if I don't prepare, then you're in trouble.
100%. And when you're prepared to, the little things that might go wrong during any situation, this isn't even exclusive to public speaking. That's what we're talking about. Is like the little things that nuances that might happen, a distraction in the room or what have you, those will affect you way less if you are prepared, over prepared. And if you're not prepared, they'll affect you way more.
Yeah, exactly. And so I want to bring up a couple of things that you mentioned that really made me think as well. And I think when you're speaking, whether you're speaking to an audience that's less educated or more educated in terms of the topic as you are, I think as long as you come across authentic and natural and you really want to show that you're there to help and to educate, even if you miss something, there's no harm in saying, oh, by the way, guys, when I mentioned that, I forgot to actually mention this little part of it. There's actually another little nuance, and just come back to it really easily and casually. Like, you don't have to get flustered that you misjudged your presentation or you changed the slide out of order or whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as people realize that you're there along with them to help them, they couldn't care less how you are delivering that information, as long as you give them what they need.
100%. And I think you mentioned two really great things there. One, people aren't going to care about mistakes generally. And sometimes, honestly, mistakes I've made during speeches have been the best thing that could have happened, because it takes the air out of the room a little bit in terms of maybe any tension or anything. And it just, people love self-deprecating humor, right? They love people that make fun of themselves. If you can make a mistake and kind of laugh at yourself, your audience is gonna love that anyway. And everyone's human. People are gonna make mistakes, and you just roll with the punches. But I think the other thing you mentioned too is your audience realizing that you're there for them.
Yeah.
And that's another great way for people to help relax themselves. So, and this is scientific, like I'm not a scientist by any means, but I've read articles on this, and like your body's natural reaction to behaving in a kind and generous way toward others is to naturally calm yourself down.
Yeah.
So when you are focused on your audience and the value that you can provide to them, it doesn't matter if you think you're going to calm down or not. Your body's naturally going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're focused on, how do I look? Did I mess up any of my slides? Like,
how many times did I say and or whatever?
Exactly. And that is just going to, your body then is naturally going to go into self-defense mode and tighten up. And so I think that's a great point. As long as you make sure your audience knows you're there for them and you're just being you, so they won't really care if there's little nuances or hiccups throughout this.
I think so. And I've realized that over the years as well, in that there's a great saying that I heard many years ago. It was on a podcast, I think, and it was an unknown quote, and it just said, connections are formed in the cracks. And what that means is really cool, is that we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be super polished. We don't have to be Hollywood scripted to the T. When we show a bit of vulnerability, that's when people can really get to know us and get behind us. And that's when that rapport and that empathy starts to grow. So I think it's good actually to be a bit natural and not be so perfect.
Exactly. And it makes you relatable, right? I think one of the things, and this with public speaking, is so many people think that no one else has the same problem that they do, right? They think, man, it's so hard for me to talk to anybody about this or practice getting better because my friends don't have this. When in reality, there's so many people out there that struggle with the same thing you do. We're talking about public speaking, right? Like I said, 3 out of 4 people, if you struggle with public speaking and you're listening to this, you probably know more people than you don't that struggle with public speaking. And so people knowing that there's someone else out there that struggles with the same things they do or can make the same mistakes that they do is a powerful thing, right? Think about anytime, like you said, you brought up Hollywood, like anytime you see I'm a big golfer, right? Someone use a golf analogy, but anytime you're watching golf on TV and you see a professional golfer just dead shank a shot or hit a terrible shot, you're like, hey, I do that. Like it's humorous and relieving to know that even the best in the world can do that too.
Absolutely. Yep. So true. And I think one thing that you just mentioned, which is really interesting, I think there's the new wave of speaking and coaching and this whole new world of coaches and subject matter experts and digital courses and everything else. One thing they always talk about is, what is your origin story, or what is your story that made you decide to do what you do? And most of the time, it's because you were in the same position as your audience many years ago. And that's what you're there to help them, is to help them overcome that and get to where you are. So they know exactly, they want to know that you've come from that place of vulnerability and lack of perfection in that area because they want you to help them get there.
Right. If you're trying to lose weight, right? Like you're not going to ask someone who's never had to lose weight
That's
before.
right.
It's you want someone who's done what you've done, who has experience doing what you're trying to do, or at least what you're trying to get better at. And so I couldn't agree more. Couldn't
Yeah.
agree more.
Yeah. Really interesting. But so let's jump in, and I'd love to get your take on what are some of the ways people can start to exercise that muscle and gain a bit of confidence around what they do. And there's a really great quote as well that says confidence comes from competence. But it's almost a bit of a double-edged sword, like chicken before the egg. I think there's a bit of both. You can have a bit of confidence and then you can be competent. I think there's a bit of both in there. But what are some of the ways that you teach people to learn and remove that anxiety around public speaking?
So first, I love that quote, and I want to double down on that with you because another quote that I love is confidence is a skill, not a personality trait.
Oh,
Right?
I love that one. I
Uh,
haven't heard that. That's great.
Confidence comes from you practicing and exposing yourself and
Very
becoming
cool.
more comfortable. It's not something that you just have.
Love
And
that.
I think
That's a
that's a
great
common
quote.
misconception. In terms of things that people can do, I want to come at this kind of from two different perspectives too, because I think there's the person that they have a presentation or a speech already coming up. They have a topic and they have a specific speaking event or situation that they have to plan for. And then there's the person who maybe doesn't have their next speech or presentation or whatever coming up, but they just want to get better at it or they want to do it more, but they're scared
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I think in the first instance where you're the person that's already got something coming up and you need to prepare for it, it's exactly what you need to do. We talked about it, is prepare. And you need to prepare to the point that you're sick of it and then
Yeah.
prepare some more.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all about starting with your material, right? Knowing your material up, down, left, right, sideways.
Definitely.
And one of the big things I always preach is even if your speech is a situation when you can have flashcards or a tablet or notes, you should be able to do it from memory anyway, or as close as you can get to memory. Obviously, there are certain, I mean, even there are certain things that are hard to maybe commit to memory, but anything that you can, you should. And I always use this analogy. To anybody listening, think about when you're back in school, right? And your teacher says, class, we're gonna have a quiz tomorrow. And you're just kind of like, oh. And then she says, don't worry, don't fret, kids. It's going to be open book. And you're like, oh, sweet. I don't have to study tonight,
Easy.
right? And then the test comes and you read the first question and you think to yourself, well, I don't know the answer to that one. Ah, don't worry, I'll find it in the book. But you haven't really read the chapter because you didn't study. So you're reading through and you're, man, where is the answer to this question?
That's right.
It takes you 5 minutes to find it. And you're like, whew, okay, man, I don't know the answer to question number two either. And now you've got a 20-question quiz that you only have 30 minutes to do, and you've spent 10 minutes on your first two questions.
Yep.
Now you're panicked, now you're flustered,
Yep.
and you end up doing well. It's the same thing that we already mentioned. When you don't know your material as well as you should, a distraction in the room, a difficult question that maybe you weren't expecting, maybe something with your technology hiccups,
Yep.
you're going to get flustered more than you would if you were prepared. And so it's really about preparing to the point of no matter what happens, no matter if there's a distraction in the room, a difficult question that I wasn't expecting, no matter if my whole PowerPoint goes out, I know my material so well that
Yep.
I can present this without any of my supporting because I know it so and I can convey that through what I'm saying to people. And that's a bit, and it's, I know I mentioned like that technology can hiccup. A big thing is making sure that your technology works too. I always think of, I had a professor in grad school, Dr. Art Thomas, and he always said, if you don't test it, it will fail when you need, right?
Oh yeah.
And
It always happens with Zoom. Just when you even tested it and it still fails.
exactly. And another real world example, when I was interviewing for my classroom teaching job, the first part of the interview was you had to give a 7-minute presentation to the interview panel, which was 5 people, and it had to be teaching them how to do something. It could be anything that you wanted. It could be making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It could be doing Excel pivot tables or what have you. Being from Syracuse, New York, when I went to Syracuse, I actually, fun fact about me, I worked for the men's basketball team there as a student
Oh,
manager.
really?
And yep. And so when being in Syracuse, everyone's a Syracuse basketball fan. We don't have professional sports or anything there. And so everyone's a big basketball fan. So I said, I think a cool play on my experience will be to do a presentation on how to play Syracuse's patented 2-3 zone that they were famous for at the time, right? And so I had a whole PowerPoint planned, and I had actually gotten some videos from YouTube of the team playing the zone that I had embedded into my presentation that I was going to play and walk people through. And thanks to Dr. Thomas, who had told me always test things and prepare for the unexpected, I tested it and it worked. And I said, well, you know what, though? I don't know what kind of version of PowerPoint they have. I said, so I'm going to save the raw video to my flash drive separately, just in case.
Nice one.
And sure enough, I got into my interview and things were going great. And I got to the videos and they didn't play.
Yep.
And I said, don't worry, I have these saved back up. So let me pull those up. We'll do it, then we'll come back. And I found out later that I would have been a top candidate for the job anyway, but that moment in the interview was what put me over the top, because they said, you showed that in a classroom setting, when everything doesn't go right, you can calmly still get through it. And that is all preparation and practice and testing for that side of things. And then if you don't have a speech coming up, I know obviously you can't prepare, or I think it's what we've already been talking about, reps. And it's not, I think so many people confuse what a stage is, right? Like they think they have to be up in front of a room of people or an auditorium or what have you. A stage is anytime someone's listening to you speak,
Yep.
right? Like we're on a stage right now, you and I.
Exactly. Even what we're doing
And
now is a stage. And a lot of people get really nervous on a podcast episode.
exactly. And how about just start by saying hi to strangers? Think about how many people walk down the hall of an office or apartment building or even on the street, and they've got their headphones in, or they pretend to be on their phone, or they just nod at the person as they walk by instead of just being like, hey, how are you today? Hope you have a great day. And just keep walking. That's a little thing, but I promise you that will help. One thing that I think is really cool, I heard this somewhere on social media. I forget who it was, so I don't want to take credit for it, but giving strangers compliments is a great way to put yourself out there and just, hey, yeah, I know I don't know you, but I just want to say, love that jacket you're wearing. Hope you have a great day.
Cool.
And
I love that. Love your hairstyle or whatever.
exactly. And that's a great way to just make someone's day.
Yep.
But it also makes you more comfortable just stepping out and talking to people. Posting on social media is another thing. There's people, they spend so much time on social media. Instead of doing a written post, put yourself on camera and put a video out there, right? Do it once a week. And then if you get more comfortable, do it twice a week or twice a month or whatever you're comfortable with to start. But it's just about doing it and putting yourself in situations where you are pushing the envelope a little bit and practicing those things, because there's certain things that you can't really do in terms of preparation and practice until you have something coming up. But if you don't, it's really just about, okay, think about a situation that is related to public speaking when normally you get nervous and avoid it, and then go do that. Then go try to put yourself in a situation where you can say, is it really as bad as I think it is?
Yep.
I mentioned earlier, it's all about challenging your own beliefs about public speaking.
Yeah, so true. If I go back to my first podcast episode, oh my God, I ran out of questions after about 5 minutes. I was terrible. But now I'm so relaxed and I'm happy just to go with the flow. And obviously I do a bit of preparation before because I believe in preparation, but I'm also really relaxed and in the moment, and I can pivot when I need to as well. So it's just practice. And as you say, I think doing the reps and slowly desensitizing yourself more and more each time. So jump on as many podcasts as you can, and then do a couple of webinars and then do a small speech to friends and family and then put your hand up for something else and slowly.
100%. And I think, and this is something I'll touch on probably, I think later too, but I think one of the things too, that helps people when you put yourself out there, especially if you get feedback from people, is that you will realize that other people don't notice half the things that you notice about
So
yourself,
true.
right? Even being super comfortable speaking, there are so many times where I'll watch a video that I posted or something and be like, That's what I sounded like?" But then someone else watches it and they're like, "Oh, you seem so comfortable." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't think I seemed comfortable there." But it's because you're in your head, everything you're feeling neurologically, like you're projecting physically onto yourself, thinking, "Oh man, they definitely noticed that my legs feel weak right now," or something. Yeah, your audience doesn't notice that, right? And I think that'll be a good thing for people when they put themselves out there to say, "Huh, people actually don't notice some of the things that I notice about myself. I don't even have to worry about those anymore."
Yeah, so true. And I think there's a big part as well about knowing your material. I think that's a really good point. If you've got to speak about a particular topic, you've got to know your stuff because then you come through as more confident and you can answer questions easier as well. Because there's
100%.
always going to be someone that's going to throw a curly question at you. And you think, "Oh, I didn't think about that." But if you have enough material and have enough confidence, you can slowly dissect that and come up with an answer.
Exactly. And I want to mention something though, since we're on the topic of questions, because I think what you're saying is 100% right. Your material is how you get through those situations. But I also want to say to people, it's okay to not know the answer to every question that you get asked. Like I think that's something that people worry about, and it's like you're not an encyclopedia.
You're not Google.
Someone could have a question that you don't know. And a tool that we used when I was doing classroom teaching is something that we called a parking lot. And you get like one of those giant post-its, or if you have a whiteboard or whatever it is, and someone asks you a question, and because I think what a lot of people do too is they get asked a question that they don't maybe 100% know, and they do one of two things. They either answer it maybe not 100% accurately. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And or they spend so much time trying to figure out the answer in the moment that it throws off the kind of uh, pace and flow of the rest of their speech
Yeah.
or presentation.
Agree.
So if you use a parking lot, you can just say, "You know what? I'm not 100% sure on that answer, and I want to make sure I get you the right answer. So I'm going to put that up here on our parking lot. And then during the next break, I'll find the answer for you. And then when you come back from the break, hey guys, just so you know, this question got asked. I wanted to verify a few things. I got the answer. Here's what it is." And then it doesn't disrupt the flow. You make sure you get accurate information, and your audience will appreciate it much more if you just say, "I don't know, let me get the answer for you though," rather than just trying to answer it with whatever comes to your mind because maybe you're not 100% sure.
I love that concept of the parking lot. I'm going to use that. That's fantastic.
Love it.
Let's just put that on the parking lot, and I'm going to come back to you on that one. So let's leave that over there. That's fantastic. Great. Now, there's something that I want to chat to you about as well. In terms of this journey of speaking and becoming more confident, where do you think other people fit in? Should you try and confide in certain people that always will allow you to use them as a sounding board or as an audience or accountability? When you're like, you say,
Mhm.
"I'm going to be doing this," and you use other people to make yourself accountable because you've got it, you put it out there, and now you have to actually do it.
Yeah, I'm always a big advocate for an accountability partner or just sharing your journey with other people in general. And that's something I even personally struggled with. I think just recently was really the first time I shared what I've been working on my personal Facebook account. I have a Facebook business page and an Instagram and a TikTok where I post things for public speaking tips and various things. But it was the first time now that I'm really starting to get things going, that I put myself out there on my personal account and let friends and family and all of these people know. And I'm always a big advocate for that because I think we've touched on that having someone that can give you feedback is always invaluable. And just also too, again, knowing that you have someone to talk to about something that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
Because I think so many times it's not that you don't have someone, but you're worried about how that person might think about what you're going through. Are they going to, again, that fear of judgment, right? Where if you enlist other people on your journey, then you already know you have those people. And it should be super easy with speaking because, again, 3 out of 4 people, you have friends or family that struggle with this like you do. Form a little group that you can practice with, take
Yeah.
turns, or you can get feedback with. And even if those, it's one thing. I mean, I think I'm going to go back to another one of my grad school professors, Professor Robert Brenner. And this is something that I use with people all the time, and I love it. So it was a management class. It wasn't like a speaking class or anything, but every week in class, the first part of class was 3 people were assigned each class to get up and give a 5-minute presentation on 3 topics from that week's chapter. It could be any 3 topics you wanted. You got to pick them, but it had to be 5 minutes. You had to have one PowerPoint slide for each topic with stuff on it you were going to talk about. And then you had to have a slide at the end that had a discussion question for each topic. And he would pick the best question he thought that you had, and you had to lead the room in a mini discussion on that question. And what he really talked about was, one, if you're going to be out in the professional world, you have to be able to get up and speak in front of people. And how do you get better at that? You practice, right? But what he really did was he was adamant about, this is a safe space, right? We're here to help each other get better at this. And so what would happen is, let's say it was my turn, I would get up and speak, and I would do my discussion question, and then I'd go sit down, and he would go up to the board and he would write 2 columns. He would write WR and WNI, what needs improvement.
Like,
And literally the whole class would just raise their hands, anyone who had feedback. Oh, you did a really great job with this, but you need to work on this. And it was, listen, no one's laughing at anybody. Listen, everyone has their own struggles with whatever it is, but we're going to help each other get better at this. And it was down to everything from, how did you dress? Did you dress for the part? How was your time? Could he tell that you had practiced because you were right on 5 minutes?
Yep.
Or were you a minute short and he could tell maybe you didn't do that as much? Did you know your slides? Did you have to keep looking back at your slides, or because you weren't allowed to have notes? Or could he tell that you knew those so well? How was your eye contact with the rest of the class? All of those little things. And it was something so simple but so profound, and that's something that people can do with each other. You can do that with a group of friends. And so, like, it's just things like that that you can do. And sure, it's tough, and we do individual coaching and group coaching, so there are things you can do this individually, but if you have friends or people that you can bring along with you, always a huge advocate for that.
Love that. Very cool. And you can gamify it in a way, like with a group of friends and with family. You can have some fun with it.
Exactly. You can do a challenge. Everyone votes and you all put a couple bucks in, or a little prize or some candy or whatever you're doing. And you could come up with different ways to do it. You could do it in person with each other. You can do social media posts and see who gets what kind of feedback on social media. Even if it's just friends and family that you're getting feedback from on social media, it could be really anything. The possibilities are endless to practice public speaking, because it all really just boils down to talking to other people, way, shape, or form.
We're just communicating to the larger audience in a million different ways. Love it. And you brought up another great point there, that how you dress is also important, because how you dress also dictates how you feel. So part of being prepared with your slides is also making sure you're there on time, making sure that you're dressed so you're comfortable and you feel empowered. There's all these subtle mental hacks that you can use.
Exactly. And everyone's going to have their own routine, their own things that make them feel good. But my high school basketball coach always used to say, you look good, you feel good, you play good. It's the same thing, right? If you do things in preparation to make yourself feel good, you get up on time, You get into your routine, whether that's you go to the gym or you just take a shower, brush your teeth, get into everything. Every little piece of your preparation contributes. And sure, there's things that are minor that probably aren't going to be a huge deal, but especially if it's something that you struggle with initially, having those little pieces in place that you can do will do nothing but help you.
Yeah, love it, love it. Now, I suppose we have to talk about the dissecting and the reflecting on what we just did. So, what points or pointers do you have for people on how they can get feedback from something they've just done and reflect on how they can be better next time?
Yeah, it's, in terms of getting feedback from other people, it's like as simple as just ask, "Hey, I'm trying to get better at this. Would you mind giving me a little bit of feedback here and there?" And it can be just in verbal. You can create maybe like a little survey or something if you want to go that route and give it to people. I also think it's important to reflect ourselves though too, and that's a big part of what I try to help people with is, okay, what did I see versus what did my audience see? And I think that's a big thing. And that's why feedback from other people, I think, is so important because, like I said, you might do a speech or a presentation and be like, I don't feel great about how that went. And maybe it's just as simple as doing a journal or writing things down. Okay, this is what I felt I did well. This is what I felt I didn't do well. Like, how could I get better on that? But then if you get feedback from other people, you can compare that and you can see, okay, maybe this is where I'm getting in my own head a little bit.
Mhm.
And okay, I matched up with the audience on this, so definitely want to have that on the list of things to work from next time. There's no shortage of ways to do it. And again, everyone is different. Some people are avid note takers, some people are spreadsheet people, some people are big journalers. Like find something that works for you, but just be consistent with it, right? Like just make sure that okay, and do it in the moment. I think that's the big thing. You don't want to do a speech and then 3 days later try to make a journal entry on how you did. Do it right after when the emotions are high,
Yeah.
right? Because then you can also see then 3 days later if you go back and read your journal again, you can, "Oh my gosh, why was I thinking like that? I was a little emotionally charged." You can look at it from both ways. And I think that's the key.
Yeah. I think general reflection is always good for anything we do. If we want to improve, we have to reflect. If we don't take a few minutes to just reflect on what went well and what we could improve on, we'll never grow.
100%. And I know we've been dropping some of our favorite quotes. One of my all-time favorite quotes is Dr. Eric Thomas, who's one of the most famous motivational speakers in the world. And he always talks about, I need you to confront you. And that's been a super powerful thing. If you're struggling with something or you're not where you want to be in a certain area of your life, the first thing to do is to confront you. Taking responsibility for everything, right, is just the easiest way to relax, right? And it's another thing that Dr. Eric Thomas talks about is you give power to other people or other things in your life when you think that they have any sort of influence or control over what's happening with you.
Yeah.
Whether that's, deeper problems in your life or something we're talking about, a fear of public speaking. Hey, I'm in control of this. I'm going to challenge my beliefs about public speaking and I'm going to confront myself for thinking that way instead of thinking, oh, like I said, I just don't have confidence or I'm an introvert or whatever the case may be.
Love it. Love it. Yep. So true. So true. I think we can trade quotes for all night.
For days, for days.
One of my favorite things to do is collect quotes. I love quotes, cool quotes from obscure people as well. Now, Zach, I wanted to just have a chat and learn a bit more about how you actually work. So I want to give the audience a bit more understanding on your process and how they can work with you and what would they expect.
Yeah, I think one thing I've been talking about, and the big thing for me is the mindset around public speaking. That's where everything starts. You can have all of the breathing techniques or visualization techniques or strategies for public speaking, but ultimately, if you still have that kind of underlying fear or anxiety, those will help a little bit, but that's really it's not what it's all about. And really, what I'm trying to do is not only I don't want to get people to the point where they can get through public speaking despite them hating it. I don't want to be the parent that's getting their kid to eat their vegetables. I want it to be a way to help people understand public speaking, grow through practicing public speaking, and ultimately enjoy it, maybe even love it, because it will open people's eyes to what an amazing tool it can be and all of the things that they can share with people. One of the things that I always try to think of is, if you don't share whatever you should be sharing or need to share or want to share with other people, then you're really doing them a disservice. Pardon my language, but you're screwing them because they're not getting the information that they need. And so
I agree.
I really want to help people with that. So, yeah, it all starts with the mindset. And we offer 6 week and 12-week coaching programs. We can do individual or group coaching. And obviously, if it's a 12-week program, you have a little bit more time to dive into each aspect of things. But I think of it as 5 milestones, right? So your mindset's first and foremost. So the first 7 or sessions will be focused on why what's your biggest fears around public speaking? Okay, why do you think you feel that way? Did you have a bad experience? Just like the prodding of why, until we eventually get to the center, right?
Yep.
The second milestone is all about something we've talked about a lot today: quick wins, quick tactical wins. What are things that we can get you to do and put into practice that you can be like, okay, now that I think of it this way, it's not as bad as I thought.
And
And
that builds confidence as well.
exactly. A task accomplished makes you want to accomplish another task. It's like making your bed in the morning, right? And then the third milestone is the hard stuff, right? Okay, now we're really going to push the envelope a little bit. What can we do that's bigger and stronger and badder than what we did for the quick tactical wins? It's you're approaching the apex of the roller coaster, right? Where you want to get over the hump so you can do all that downhill momentum, which is the fourth milestone of, okay, now how do we keep building on this? Let's keep doing more and more and more and more and more. And every milestone step of the way, building on that mindset to where you're now doing actions that are reinforcing the mindset change we're trying to implement. Where you're saying, yeah, you know what? I don't know why I always thought about public speaking like this. I don't know why I always thought about fear of judgment that way,
Yeah.
because now that I've been doing what we've been doing, it seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
And then lastly is just plans for future growth, okay? Because obviously the program is going to come to an end at some point, and we want to make sure that we have good strategies, good goals, good structure in place for you to say, okay, now that I've gone through this, I can come out the other side and keep it going. And this is the thing I want to, okay, maybe for some people, if you're a working professional, right, it just might be about, hey, speaking is going to open up more job opportunities for me, more opportunities for promotion or different things. Maybe you get to, okay, I want to start my own business, but I never did because I don't like being on social media, or whatever the case may be. Want to get people to a place where they can say, this is what we went through together. Okay, where do I want to go next? And so that's what we do. And just for the listeners, also, pre-recorded courses are something that will be available in the future, not something that is available yet. But I do understand that maybe you're not ready for a full coaching program, or that's just not what you want, and you want to have something that you can take and do at your own speed. Completely understand that. So that's something that I want to make available to people as well.
Nice. That's a great idea. I love it. Zach, that's been absolutely brilliant. What about the old adage that they say, if you just imagine everybody naked, you relax?
Yeah, I don't buy that. Because I think another one of the big things that people don't realize will calm them down is eye contact.
Yeah. So
And so I think the lack of eye contact falls into that same category of, I'm going to imagine everybody naked, right? And when people avoid eye contact, I like to refer to it as looking at everybody without actually looking at anybody.
yeah.
And You're looking out over the heads of your audience,
Yeah.
right? You're just focused on an area of the room.
Yeah. And you don't connect. You lose that connection.
Exactly. Whereas if you make eye contact with individual members of your audience,
Mm.
you're building an individual connection with each of those people, and that makes you more comfortable with them, and that's going to naturally cause your body to calm down. People have to remember the people you're speaking to a group, but the people that are there listening to you, they're listening as each individual person.
So true.
And so you want to make sure that you build those individual connections throughout your speech or presentation. And it's actually going to relieve maybe like that intimidation factor of your audience, right? Because you're building those personal connections, even if it's just through looking someone in the eye.
Yeah. It's so amazing how the mindset and the approach and it's more the meta of it all rather than the actual expression of the act that's so important.
Exactly. And that's why that's such a big focus for me because so many times throughout my career, where I've been either training or helping people, or just by happenstance where someone asks me a question or says something about public speaking, where I've just been like, what about if you think about it this way? Right. And then they're just, huh, yeah, that's a good point. And so it really is right what it is. It's about challenging your own beliefs about public speaking because there's so many misconceptions I think that people that are common out there.
Yeah.
Talked about confidence being a skill. There's so many people that just think I'm either good at public speaking or I'm not. Like
Yeah.
it's impossible for me to get better at this. I'm always going to struggle with it. If you let yourself, but we can help you. And even if it's not us, there's ways for you to help yourself or other people to help you too.
So true. And I also just want to reiterate what you mentioned is that when you become confident at public speaking, it opens up so many opportunities. Because otherwise, if you close yourself off because you're not comfortable talking to people in a group, there are so many opportunities that you're just missing out on.
100%. Just people will be shocked if you make yourself more comfortable speaking to people in general, whether it's in a presentation or just one to one.
Yeah.
You will be shocked just the random opportunities that come your way that you probably have not seen before.
So true. I've definitely noticed that in my own journey. It's fascinating. Yeah. Zach, what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, the name of my company is Master Your Speak. You can just go right to our website, masteryourspeak.com. Right on the website, we have a couple of things, right? So we do actually have an ebook that is a paid product, but it can be purchased right on our website. So it's an ebook. It's called 10 Steps to Overcoming Stage Fright.
Nice.
And if anyone's not ready for that, we actually also have a free guide on our website, which is it's the 10 steps to overcoming stage fright. And then the ebook goes much more in depth on each of those. And with the ebook, you get a couple of bonuses. You get a companion workbook that comes with it. So that's just got bullet points from every chapter. And it also has a notes page for each chapter and some self-reflection questions for each chapter as well, so that you can do those, have some prompts for that. And then we also throw in two checklist, a presentation checklist and a meeting checklist. Those both have things that you should prepare before and things that you should prepare for during. And so that all comes in one package if you decide to purchase our ebook. And then I mentioned the free 20-minute discovery calls. There's a link on there to do that as well. So you can click right on there. We have available slots on the calendar Monday through Friday and schedule a time. It's 20 minutes and it's completely free. And also on the scheduling page too, it is noted we have available time slots, but we understand everyone's schedule is tough. Reach out to us. Our email's on our website, our email's on our scheduling page. It's just coach.zach@masteryourspeak.com. But that's the easiest way to find us. And then also at the bottom of the website is all of the links to social media. So I have pages for TikTok, YouTube, or I'm not on YouTube yet, sorry. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X and LinkedIn. So there's links to all of those
Awesome.
as well. You can follow on those for daily public speaking tips, just different things around not only mindset of public speaking, but just general tips and practices in general. So there's a place on our website to send us a message if you want, but we can also feel free to DM me on social media as well. Always happy to chat with people.
Outstanding. That was sensational, Zach. I've learned so much. I've really loved diving into the mindset of public speaking and the intricacies of public speaking. I love all your quotes. You've also had some great mentors and university professors over the years. So that's been, must have been amazing. And I always like to give my guests the last word. So is there anything that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've touched on, but I think my advice to anybody listening would just be, again, like you are not, if you struggle with public speaking, you are in the majority. You are in the majority, 3 out of 4 people, right? And this is not exclusive to public speaking. I think something I've mentioned is there's so many people out there, whatever thing that they're struggling with or thing that they do struggle with, even if it's not an everyday thing for them, is they feel like they're the only one who has the problem. And I always say, yeah, when you're in a dark room, you think you're the only one there because you can't see anything, right?
I like that.
So I want to be the person with the flashlight. So if you struggle with public speaking, but you're not sure about what your next step is, go to our website, schedule one of those free 20-minute discovery calls. And it's just 20 minutes of trying to get to know each other better and understand, are we a good fit? Can we help you? And go from there. So the other thing I want to mention, if you download our free guide, you'll also get with it a list of the top 9 books to help you with public speaking. But there's one that's not on there that I was actually just thinking about it just before I jumped on here today that I didn't include it. And I was like, man, why didn't I include that? And so the book is called How to Work a Room. I forget the author's name, but it's called How to Work a Room.
I like it.
And the most profound thing in there is it talks about, this is just talking to other people. So use this if you're going to just practice talking to strangers. The concept of the introduction is the roof, right? If you're in the same place as somebody else, you already have something in common with them. So use that to start a conversation with them. And it's that simple. So that's just another little piece of advice. But go buy that book. It's going to blow your mind. And yeah. And like I said, reach out, any questions, anything, even if it's just to say, hey, we heard you on this awesome podcast with Darren, and we just want to say hi. Always want to say hi to people and meet new people. So
sensational. Zach, it's been an absolute pleasure. I have no doubt that you'd be amazing to work with. So I definitely urge anybody listening or viewing to check out Zach's website, download some of the stuff, consider working with him because he comes across as a really genuine guy. He loves helping people, and I can definitely tell that he's got the right energy to help people get more confident when they're speaking as well. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. I hope everybody enjoyed that as much as I did. And I'm going to put all the links in the show notes for everyone. But everyone have a great one. And we're going to see you at our next episode coming up next week. So everyone have a great one, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Zach.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation podcast. If you would like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Just reach out via www.suspendedanimation.com.au. Also, remember to click on the link in the show notes for loads of great podcasting resources, webinars, courses, and opportunities to help you on your podcast journey. Many of them free. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.